Welcome to Next Real Talk Fitness Radio, where we challenge the fitness between your ears. I'm your host, Tiaja. Today we are inundated with information, yet we do not seem to have the wisdom to process it all, nor to render it useful at school or work or life in general. In part because we have been trained to devalue learning by reducing it to the processing of bits and pieces of information in exchange for a letter grade in school or a promotion at work. But life doesn't work that way. It cannot be processed in bits and pieces. It must be inhaled and exhaled in its totality, in its wholeness. Sure, there are events and experiences that happen to us which seem disconnected. However, once we are able to gain greater perspective by stepping back and seeing the larger picture, we get a glimpse at the relative connectedness of all things. Still, what often prevents us from seeing the whole picture is ourselves, that is, something within ourselves. We unconsciously obscure the picture because it doesn't jive with our personal beliefs or self-concept. So we settle for the hologram of ourselves we share with the world, a hollow sense of self-worth that is solely based on the bits and pieces of information that agree with our belief system. The problem is allowing only selective information, which does nothing for the whole. In fact, such derision only promotes dis-ease. Little wonder why America leads all developed nations in nearly every mortality statistic. So today, young and old struggle to concentrate, to learn, to remember, and to think deeply. Thousands of individuals of all ages are being falsely labeled as biologically deficient and are medicated with brain-damaging substances. We have an ADHD and Alzheimer's epidemic in this country, and everyone pretends as if it doesn't exist. Do we understand the damage this is doing to our families, to us socially, culturally, individually? Sadly, we are losing our power to learn and to think. But more importantly, we are losing our power of how to learn and how to think. And thus we are losing our power of choice. With the world at our fingertips, we have less perspective, less insight, less wisdom, less empathy, less love, less gratitude. Even though it's easy to see that here in America, our standard of living is leaps and boundaries above most countries and nations in the world. We are blessed, yet we focus on what we don't have, or worse, what others have that we don't have. This is a mental and emotional health issue for sure. When quantity supersedes quality, the outcome is spurious at best. Imagine gathering millions of puzzle pieces without the ability to put the puzzle together. No wonder confusion dominates the headlines, but rather than consider the obvious that something is wrong with our society, we internalize all the misinformation, indeed the confusion, and begin to think something is wrong with us. No wonder we shout people down on social media when using our anonymous identities. And is fear the reason we disallow any information that disagrees with us? That it may potentially expose who we really are behind the veiled curtain? What and who are we hiding from? Society? Ourselves? And why are we hiding? And what are we afraid of? So let me ask you, do you know it makes knowledge significant? And is it only significant if it agrees with what you believe to be true? The point of thinking and learning should be self-enrichment and to create a better world for us all. So why hasn't increased technology and access to information achieved that? Right now, you might be asking yourself, what does all this have to do with health? Well, as I said a million times, this podcast is not just about the X's and O's of fitness, nor what I affectionately call the numerology of fitness. For I have never trained one client who doesn't have underlying emotional issues. In fact, most couldn't achieve any goal until they first peel back all the layers and unpack all the baggage that they had been carrying around for decades. Of course, the fitness between your ears is as vitally important as exercising the body. Don't believe me? Have you ever seen someone who you thought was in top physical condition, for example, your favorite athlete, and then their life seemingly unravels the moment they receive some bad news or hit a monumental bump in the road? See, having a six-pack or a bikini figure doesn't matter when all hell is breaking loose, does it? So I talk about things that most trainers won't talk about because they want to get paid. Of course, I like to get paid too, but never at the expense of my clients. My lone goal has always been to ensure that every client is self-empowered, that they are fully capable of thinking and doing for themselves. I have always said, what difference does it make to lift all the weight in the gym yet be incapable of lifting the cares of the world once you leave? Does that make sense? And do you agree with that? Well, whether you agree or not, the question remains, what will you do with this information. I believe there is such a thing as emotional and mental self-care, don't you? And if there isn't, shouldn't there be? Perhaps one day soon we'll begin to realize that neither society nor our brains are the only factors in determining what we do with our lives. We need to recognize the power of our own thoughts, how they can hinder our ability to process information correctly, to think, learn, and succeed on our own terms. Dear friends, I wish above all things that you prosper just as your soul prospers. You've been listening to Urban X Real Talk Fitness Radio with your host Tiaja. Until next week, as always, walk in health and peace.